We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Welcome back to another episode of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. If you're not a member of the Ram TV Live family, you need to join. We have fantastic content creators who are giving you tons of information on a daily basis. You need to become a part of the family, and you need to like, share, subscribe, and share it with everybody else in your family, all your friends, so that they can become a part of our family as well. Because I'm here every week to provide you with the shattering of your preconceived notions as handed down to you by the mainstream media and your favorite pundit, influencer, podcasters, so on and so forth. Today, we have a great lineup for you. We're going to have Nils Gravilius, a crime expert, author. He's going to come on, private investigator. He's going to come on, talk to us about Minneapolis and what's going on there. And we're going to have John Gordon, attorney, legal analyst, and host of Palm Beach Based, going to come on, and we're going to talk about the Supreme Court, Maduro denying charges, and Trump calling for the release of the Epstein files that specifically name Democrats. My personal, we'll get into that a little bit more, but my personal take on it is, hey, not good enough, man. Not good enough. I don't care whether there are Republicans named in the Epstein files. I don't care whether there are Democrats named in the Epstein files. I want everybody named in the Epstein files to be exposed and released for everyone to see. Let us be the judge, jury, and not the executioner, because we don't promote violence on this show, except, the occasional bitch slapping of your purple-haired, hairy armpit, hairy-legged, unshaven, hippie leftists, who shouts from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and likes to protest and shut down cities and cause death, poverty, and destruction, and promote, and communists, because communists are evil people. But, it's been a bang up week. Unfortunately, Scott Adams has died. If you don't know who Scott Adams is, he's the creator of Dilbert. Yes, the famous newspaper comic strip. I've known Scott Adams for a few years. We've had conversations in the back channels. He was a supporter of my works on my writing and stuff, and it is bittersweet. He was a good guy by all accounts. This is one that'll be felt, and one that'll be felt specifically because, like Mia Love, I actually know him personally. So, God bless, rest in peace, brother. We'll mourn you. I gotta say on that note, one of the things I appreciate about Scott Adams was he didn't shy away from the debate. He was willing to debate any topic with anybody and remain respectful. He didn't take jabs. I've been in many spaces with him online where there were people who took shots at him, and he could have very easily fallen into the trap and take shots back, take personal shots at people, but he didn't. He managed to keep it at a intellectually highbrow level argument, very respectful, kept it on topic, and kept every discussion about solutions. Or at least about coming to an amicable agreement and understanding, agree to disagree where you can. We need more topics like that. We need more discussions like that. We need more people like that. The people who should be driving conversation in this country should be the people who are trying to be reasonable and trying to focus on solutions, not the people who are a part of the grift machine for their own self-aggrandizement, self-promotion, and for profit. The people that prioritize engagement over all else. There's been a lot going on over this past week. I mean, Byron Donalds' poll numbers just came out, and he looks like he's going to be the next governor of Florida. And Byron is a friend of mine, so I'm happy about that. There you will see nothing but celebration for me. But he has a challenger. He has a challenger, James Fishback, who's running an overtly racist challenge against him. And he's using this pseudo bastardized form. As I've told you, we had Josh Barnes on the podcast last week. I'm going to want to have a discussion with Josh Barnes about this coming in near future, because I see this as being a rising trend, unfortunately, on the right, just as I saw it becoming a rising trend on the left. But the bastardization of Christianity in order to enforce someone's political views. Now, if you're a good Christian, this is a post I put up on X. There is no such thing as a racial-based Christian view that is in line with the Word of God and the Bible. Only perversions seeking to validate the insecurities of pathetic, low-IQ, neo-Marxism dweebies. There is the Word of God, period. Those who attempt to pervert it are wholly just as evil as the Pharisees were. Now, unfortunately, this guy is running this campaign against Byron Donalds, and he's taken a lot of racial jabs at him specifically, and it is very, very racial based, unfortunately. But you have the left who are jumping onto it. A post I'm going to read to you. Byron Donalds, the Republican Party isn't racist. And then a picture of James Fishback in his commentary on Byron Donalds, calling him Byron Donalds, calling him a promoter of Section 8, turning Florida into a Section 8 ghetto. Yes, the very same dog whistles and undertones you hear the left use against white males in the Republican Party. And he shows a picture of him. Now, let me break this down, because I want people to understand. There was just a poll released showing Byron Donalds in the lead, overwhelmingly in the lead, for the gubernatorial race in Florida, raising $45 million. The nearest Republican to him is at $5.5 million. The Democrat running against him is around $2.5 million. And James Fishback, yes, the online grifter that he is, has raised $950. He is running a grift campaign solely with the goal of disparaging Byron Donalds. This is not the type of people that we need to be promoting in the Republican Party. Unfortunately, we have social media that was supposed to bring us all together, and it's supposed to allow us to communicate with each other and open up channels of dialogue and that we otherwise wouldn't have. Open up the access to information. But just with the good comes the bad, right? It has also exacerbated the worst parts of human nature. Everybody gets a voice, right? Everybody gets a voice, even the people you don't want to hear. Now, as a free speech absolutist, James Fishback has the right to say whatever dumb shit he wants to say. Whatever he wants to spew out of his mouth, he can say it. And I have the right to disagree, and I have the right to call him a racist. And in this case, he actually is racist. Okay? I don't believe in using that term lightly. I don't think it applies to 99% of the people it's used against. As I've explained on this show many, many times, racism is a spectrum. On one end, you have passive ignorance, then active ignorance, then passive malice, then active malice. Active malice are the actual neo-Nazis, Islamic jihadists, anti-Semites, the people who think the KKK and Hitler weren't that bad, those people, right? On the other end, you have passive ignorance. That is the vast majority of societies in passive ignorance. Next to that is active ignorance. Now, passive ignorance is those who don't know what they don't know. Occasionally, they might offend you because they don't know what they don't know. But if you were to bring it to their attention, say, hey, that's offensive, and let me tell you why, they would apologize and say, my bad, didn't mean to. That wasn't my intent. And as a general rule, I tell my kids, do not take offense where offense was not the intent. Okay? When someone is willing to apologize for mistakenly offending you, they didn't mean to offend you, so don't take offense to it. Don't make it a big deal. Now, active ignorance is, I don't know, but I also don't care. I don't know why I offended you. I don't know why you take offense to something, but I don't care. And, I'm where I'm at. Those are people who don't know, they don't care. Active ignorance. These are people, I don't like you. I can't explain why. I don't know why. I have a prejudice, but it is what it is. But I'm not right there. I'm not to the extreme yet. That's the second smallest group. There are about maybe 3 to 5% of those in the entire population. And then you have the 1%. You have the 1%. These are your actual extremists. They hate you emphatically. They're willing to manipulate data. They're willing to manipulate talking points, to manipulate history, to make up reasons, to validate the reasons why they hate you. Once again, let me preface this, let me clarify, the vast majority of people land over here in passive ignorance and active ignorance. The heavy minority lands over here. Way over here. Okay? Now, we need to stop allowing these people to derail the conversations that the rest of us are trying to have about solutions, right? Because the vast majority of people in the country care about solutions. We care about kitchen table issues. We care about the things that affect us in our daily lives. We don't go around, we're not in the middle of a race war when you walk down the street in America. It's stuff that only seems to pop up online. Why? Because keyboard warriors have a habit of saying things online that they would get punched in the mouth for saying out in public. Why would they get punched in the mouth? Because there's a definitive line that in public discourse that you don't cross. You don't say something about a man's mama. You don't say something about his girlfriend, all right, or his daughters. You sure as hell don't go around walking up to people in the middle of Compton and start calling them racial epithets. You wouldn't walk into a synagogue and start calling a bunch of Jews racial epithets. I say the same thing when it comes to, and before you say that there's no other word. Yeah, because I've heard this argument being used before. There's no other word that has the same racial connotations referred to white people or any other race as the word nigger. Now, I've already debunked this because there's a racial epithet for every ethnicity out there. Literally, you can go down the friggin'. I'm not going to list them all, but you can list you can list them. Now, that I say you treat people respectfully until they give you a reason otherwise. But you still don't have to devolve down to that level. Okay? You just walk away, because that's the mature, stoic, empathetic way to do things, is to walk away. Stoic empathy is how a man should conduct himself in society. It is a tenet of divine masculinity. There's a lot of stuff going on in the United States. You have the Supreme Court weighing in on sex-based rules. I'm going to give props to Kelly Ayotte. Kelly Ayotte signed on with the governors backing the rules against men and women's sports. This is a good thing. Men should not be competing against women. Only the weakest of men, internally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, want to compete with women. You are taking the things that women have fought for decades, and you are bastardizing it for your own ends, and you're taking advantage of women. There is no other way to look at it. I'm sorry. If you have another opinion on it, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's one of those things that I'm not going to shy away from. I'm not going to tell you that it's okay to, get into a wrestling match with a woman, or to get into a boxing ring with a woman, or fight UFC against a woman, or to go. Now, when women want to go into men's spaces and they want to compete with men, and you're going to find, ladies, you're going to find it really hard to compete physically with men in a lot of men's spaces. It is what it is, right? If you're a woman, you want to go be an oil rigger, guess what? You're going to have a tough time. That's a man's space. The mortality rate is very, very high. A lot of people die doing that job. Same with police, same with the military. And I'm unapologetic about it. These are places that men should be working, that we are built to do these jobs, to do the highly dangerous jobs. If you're a woman, you want to jump in that space and you want to try your hand at it, by all means, go ahead. But if you're a man, you want to jump into the weak spaces in women's sports and stuff, and you want to try your hand at beating women, you're a loser. You're a loser and you should seek help. All right, up next we have Nils Gravilius. We're going to get into the Minnesota shooting up next. See you in 90 seconds.
In a nation divided, in a time of shadows, and rises a call that echoes through every valley, every church, every heart that still believes in truth. For Christ and Country tells the powerful story of conviction, courage, and unwavering faith in the face of opposition. It is the story of a man who refused to bow. In these pages, you'll witness a modern struggle for truth, a stand not just for one man, but for every American who believes that faith still matters. From author Drew Thomas Allen comes a stirring tribute to courage, sacrifice, and the unshakable hope found in Christ. This is the time. This is the fight. This is the story of a nation worth saving, for Christ and for country.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive. And raise my hands to the sky. What a feeling, time to feel it. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Unleashing your humble alpha is the key factor to unlocking profound leadership, unshakable confidence, clarity of purpose, and the quality of life you dream of. As combat veterans and military leaders Stephen Kuhn and Lane Ballone decode how you can master your life, conquer everything that stands in your way, improve your ability to cope with stress, and run toward greatness. You can find Unleash Your Humble Alpha on Amazon.
Look at that. It's so sad.
All right, welcome back. You know, I want to get into this Minnesota shooting with our guest, regular on the show, Nils Gravilius, crime expert, author, U.S. Army veteran, detective, and author of The Last Lawman: True Stories of a Private Detective. We're going to talk about the Minnesota shooting. You know, ICE shot a woman who was attempting to drive her vehicles at them. You know, it's just vehicular assault, right? a vehicle can be used as a deadly weapon. We've seen in many European countries where vehicles have been used to commit terrorism. They've been rammed through crowds of people, killing and maiming friggin' dozens of people. Now, the left has been using, when they're not out blocking traffic or, destroying cities and creating death, poverty, and destruction, they're now using vehicles to shadow ICE members when they're out making arrests. Now, this is just me saying you probably should not try and fight the guy that has a gun. And you sure as hell shouldn't bring a vehicle to a gunfight. However, as you can see in this next clip, people, do dumb shit, get stupid prizes. Stupid shit gets stupid prizes. Let's go ahead and show that clip next.
Agent yells for Good to get out of the car. Her wife then yells at her to go. Ross is now in front of the car as Good reverses, then drives forward. Gunfire is heard. Good's car then crashes into two others that are parked. She later dies.
It's still not clear.
Oh, no. All I can say is, you win, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? Up next, we have Nils Gavilius. How are you doing, Nils?
I think I'm pretty good, Julian. How?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a great week so far. I'm looking at this, and I'm like I said, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
I think you're correct. I'd point out that if these sanctuary cities and states cooperated with immigration to the extent that they opened the jails up and allowed the immigration officers into the jails to collect the people that they're there to get, encounters like this would be greatly reduced. There'd be much less of this. The other thing I want to be perfectly clear on is we make a mistake. We're buying into their narrative if we consider Renee Good and her wife civilians. They're not. They're Marxist paramilitaries. They've been doing this stuff over and over again. You can't identify a place of employment that either of these women have other than being professional Marxist performative demonstrators, rioters. Obstructing law enforcement is not protest, it's obstruction. In the same way that looting, arson, and vandalism are not protest, they are performative terrorism done to intimidate people or affect an outcome or obstruct justice, that sort of thing. And we must not ratify any of what they're doing by pretending as if they have a legitimate right to obstruct the enforcement of laws in this country. These are the same class of people, Julian, who were dialing 911 because I wasn't wearing a COVID mask when I mowed my lawn 4 years ago.
I do believe that that terrorism actually fits what a lot of these Marxist paramilitary groups, because let me just read this to you. Terrorism is the unlawful use of violence or threats against people, or property to instill fear and coerce governments or populations to achieve political, religious, or ideological goals. This is exactly what the left does. This is what Antifa does. This is what these awfuls do. Yes, or what you call the Ku Klux Klan. I call them awfuls on this show, the angry white female leftists.
Well, you're precisely correct. I'll point out one more time that they never do this in cities where they don't have partners in government.
Agreed.
They know that no charges are ever going to be filed against them. They're not going to lose their civil service job if they have one, or their NGO job for any of this. This might be their NGO job. And you and I are paying for a lot of this Marxist organization on the streets through NGO money. The money spent for childcare, for drug addiction services, for homeless services, for refugee resettlement is cryptocurrency for the hard left.
Yep.
And they cycle it through their pockets. They return it to government. I think we're way past due to take this problem intensely seriously, like it's an insurgency occurring within our own borders.
So I was
wanna point
having
some-
this discussion with my uncle this week, yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we were saying the biggest failure on the right, other than our rhetoric, our inability to get concise rhetoric, and this does go down that path, is when we describe these people as terrorists, whether it's the narcos coming up here, the illegal immigrants we're trying to deport, or these angry white female leftists, these awfuls, who are threatening ICE agents, attempting to hit them with vehicles, throwing things at them, spitting in their faces, assaulting them, threatening them, so on and so forth. We're describing them as terrorists, but we're not treating them like terrorists. And there would be, at some point, there needs to be a confluence between our rhetoric. If they are terrorists, then you need to treat them like terrorists, and you need to go after them like terrorists. Or if they're not terrorists, then we need to stop calling them terrorists, and we need to start treating them like American citizens who are just assholes. But there needs to be one, it needs to be one or the other. We can't ride this line where we're treating them like they're good people who are just have a mistaken view of the world, and at the same time calling them domestic terrorists.
Well, Julian, I agree with you. I'm going to point something out that's less than obvious to some of your viewers, though. We have a lot of people within government dragging their feet on that. If Pam Bondi's Justice Department decided to start impaneling grand juries to put people like Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, and Keith Ellison up to testify as to their connections to these people and finding the NGO circulation of the money, that sort of thing, we would have people within the Senate and Congress who are allegedly on our side remonstrating and working behind the scenes to undo it.
The reason why that doesn't happen is because there are power players within the Republican Party, specifically the Senate, who receive money and give money and have no problem giving money to a lot of these NGOs as well, because they receive the kickbacks from them. Because, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What I've seen, whether when it comes to corruption in D.C. and when it comes to spending money or trying to institute some level of transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy, the Senate is the number one body in D.C. blocking it at all levels.
It's the House of Lords, and Lord Baelish runs the Senate. I mean, that's how it looks to me.
Yeah.
Now, your friend Mr. Hansen, I was hoping he would be on, so I'd make a proposition with him and you both. I bet if the Justice Department audited the use of CLETS NCIC use by blue cities, blue counties, blue states, we would discover that a lot of these performative Marxists get vetted by government using law enforcement assets to make sure they're not being infiltrated by people like James O'Keefe or by the Justice Department.
I bet you would. Because I do know, and this is a failure on the right. And I've long said that the left pays their protesters, they pay their activists, they pay their door knockers. There is not a person on the left that is out there hooking and jabbing on the ground to get their Marxist proletariat revolution that is not a paid agitator. Whereas on the right, all of our people are volunteer. Now, at a strategic level, I say we should start paying our people too, but I don't believe we should pay them to be professional agitators. I think we should pay them to be door knockers, pay them for voter registration, pay them to get out there and do laudable things with their time.
Well, they aren't paying them. You and I are. It's coming out of our pockets. I mean, that's what these public employee labor unions are all about. Who do you think harvests the ballots of people in comas in nursing homes in California, New Mexico, Oregon, and Washington? Who do you think harvests ballots from derelicts living under bridges? It's union employees disguised as social workers and that sort of thing. And yes, we need to go after this. We need to pull it apart, and we need to take it seriously.
I have a major gripe with social workers in general. Just as a career field, I find them often working far outside their mandate of what they're supposed to be doing, acting as psychologists in many cases. But it is a career of morally omnipotent busybodies backed by the government, with the power
Parents.
to take your kids from you, the power to destroy your
Parents.
marriage, the power to put you in prison, the power to take your assets, your property, your job, to destroy your
It's
life.
a quote unquote profession with no metric for malpractice. They can. When did you see a social worker fired for anything at any time ever? Here in
Yeah,
Los
honestly,
Angeles County,
The last time I saw a
Never
social
happened.
worker get fired for anything, it was sexual assault. And that was after years and years and years of complaints, and it just got to the point that they couldn't run away from it anymore.
yeah. So it took something that extreme. Well, here in Los Angeles County, every year and a half or so, there's some instance of some kid in foster care who gets murdered by the people who are supposed to be taking care of the child, while the social workers ignored the entire situation or papered it over with glowing reports about what
Yeah.
great parents they were.
Here in New Hampshire, we have the worst DCYF cases in the entire country. If you look at anybody who's been auditing the foster care and government homes situation for at-risk minors, New Hampshire is at the top of the list for the worst, and it's because a Supreme Court justice, I believe, around 15 years ago, revamped the process because there wasn't enough funds. We did not have for the dollar-to-dollar amount that we get from the federal government, there was not enough at-risk children in the state to justify the funds that we supposedly needed. Therefore, they lowered the bar to make more children qualify for being at risk. So that means we are putting kids into the system that should not be into the system. And when you go through the system, you start looking at each case by case, you're seeing kid after kid after kid, about 90% of them shouldn't be in the system at all. And
Right.
it's impossible
Well,
to get
that's
them
just-
back once they're in it.
Right, of course. I've seen a lot of this over my decades of field. And it's a deeply entrenched system. And it's like the third rail of California politics. You don't on any of that because you'll get electrocuted. You'll have the labor unions against you. You'll have state government against you. You'll have your own party against you.
Oh,
And you'll
yes, it
have,
was
of
very
course-
much. Yeah, it's very much the people who are fighting against those who want to hold people accountable in this state are the Republican Party, because the people at the top echelon who have worked in state government, state attorneys, so on and so forth, have been institutionally involved in some way, shape, or form, either in covering it up, backing the state against it when it comes to lawsuits and stuff, but they're culpable in some way, shape, or form, all of them.
Yeah, I agree with you. At least New Hampshire has a functional GOP. Here in California, we have a flaccid organ which is heavily infiltrated by the Democrats and the news media. The
Massachusetts is
California-
very much the same, which is why we get so many refugees from the communist state of Massachusetts.
Right, right, and half of the economic refugees from California who go into Texas, Arizona, etc., consider themselves holy pilgrims. Bringing in the good news of Democrat socialism, that sort of thing. They can all quote Bernie Sanders chapter and verse, and they don't realize they had to flee California because of what they voted for. I am not a communist. I am a crack communist. There is a very important distinction, Mr. Julian.
I 100% agree. I 100%
Right.
agree. It is almost comical to see people do backbends to try and avoid admitting that, it's never worked. It's not only never worked, it's only succeeded in creating death, poverty, and destruction. But that's the end of our segment. Thank you for coming on. What do you expect us to see more? Would you expect us to see more of this coming up soon?
I think the Trump administration is moving our economy in a remarkable direction, including addressing affordability. And they had to do something to take away the good news. And they're trying to reboot the summer of love, Julian. So they want to have a mostly peaceful series of riots and lootings and arsons and that sort of thing. I don't think it's getting the same traction as the George Floyd situation, though. I want to plug my book, The Last Lawman, coming out in June of 2020, just in time for you to wreck your Father's Day. And it's available for pre-order on Amazon right now.
All right, I can't wait to read it. We are definitely going to have to read that, and we're going to have you back onto the podcast so we can dive in deep.
It'd be my sincere pleasure. You be safe out there, young man.
All right, thank you. That's it for this segment of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. Remember, join the Ram TV Live family, like, share, subscribe, and go out and pre-order The Last Lawman, True Stories of a Private Detective before June. That way you can have it. Get that. Now, we'll see in about 90 seconds after the break.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Time to feel it. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
They were the best of times, they're the worst of times. We live in some really odd times, right? All right, up next we have John Gordon, attorney, legal analyst, and the host of the Palm Beach Based, to discuss with us the Supreme Court weighing in on the power to set sex-based rules in school sports. How you doing today, sir? It's nice to see you again.
Fantastic. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Got any resolutions on the chart yet?
You know, actually, I sit down every January and kind of map out my life in terms of business, personal, family, church, athletics. And so yeah, I've got some goals. I have goals every year, and they're very powerful, by the way, if you write down what you want to do and place them somewhere that you can see them and keep reminded of them, and have someone that will maybe hold you accountable, maybe your spouse. They are self-actualizing many times. So I'm a firm believer.
I completely agree with you. So what should we be taking away from the Supreme Court weighing in on the power to set sex-based rules in school sports, which, by the way, my current governor, Kelly Ayotte, just signed on to protecting girls' sports against big, burly dudes with ponytails.
Well, I almost wish we were having this interview this time tomorrow, because tonight I will be with Riley, one of the petitioners in the case, and I'm excited to see what she has to say. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments today, and I think hope the Supreme Court will side with the states on this. It should, I think, clearly be in the states' purview at a minimum, if not a 14th Amendment right to equal protection. I mean, there is no protection for women when you allow men to play in their sports. It will ultimately destroy women's collegiate sports, and maybe even Olympic sports. And so I just feel like we're living in some kind of an alternate reality right now that you and I are even having to have this conversation. It's just bizarro to me. And, I'm all for respecting our fellow human being, but there have to be limits to what a small minority class can impose on the rest of us. And there ought to be an element of common sense and just fundamental fairness, not for the trans person, but for the women athletes that have spent their lives, like Riley Gaines. I mean, she spent her entire life in the pool looking forward to competing in the Olympics. And then that dude comes along and beats her in a trial, I believe it was, and knocked her out of contention. I think it's shameful.
I completely agree with you. I think this is where you get when you bastardize the concept of tolerance. When you muddy the waters between tolerance and acceptance. The whole idea, the Christian ethos was that I will tolerate, you have the exact same rights I do, and it's not for me to judge. God will judge us all when we get to the pearly gates, and that you have a right to live your life however you see fit, as long as it doesn't infringe upon my rights to do the same. That's the tenets of our Constitution, it's the tenets of our faith, and the left have gone on a tirade bastardizing that concept to be, if you're really truly tolerant, you must also advocate that tolerance and acceptance are synonymous with each other, and acceptance is not synonymous with tolerance. I don't have to accept that what you do, what you say, what you believe is right. That comes in conflict with my own beliefs. That comes in conflict with my own rights. The idea that we should be bending over backwards as a society to make way for something that is, quite frankly, a mental disorder is the point.
That you and I see it identically. I do have a certain level of empathy and sad for trans people, because I don't think it's normal. The thing that occurs to me is that it's just never going to be enough for the left. Whatever it is, that we concede and demonstrate tolerance and acceptance. I mean, I hesitate and hate to say it, but I really am not in favor of gay marriage. And I hate to say it because I have many gay friends who are partnered, who actually, I think, are very nice people. And many of them are God-fearing people and attend church every Sunday. And I like them a lot, but it's a stretch for me to have to condone their lifestyle. But I think that as a nation, we have agreed to do so in the name of tolerance. Yet when we agree to do so, that's not enough. They then insist, you're a baker, that you have to cook the cake for the gay couple that is getting married, in spite of the fact that you are opposed to gay marriage and don't want to be a participant in the process. I just think it's so wrong that, we are bend over backwards to protect the rights of these small minorities who fundamentally I have problems with their decisions, yet they impose their dogma and their dicta on people that don't want to be a part of and get caught up in any part of the process. So where is the tolerance on the other side of the coin?
Yeah, that's the issue I've come to agreement with, is when it comes to the government's involvement in marriage, period, I have an issue because marriage law is governed by contract law. And the government's sole job within marriage is to recognize that a legal contract has taken place between two people, to acknowledge the legal contract and the terms of that legal contract. Now, so on that grounds, the ability to have the legal part, or what we called it, civil unions between gay couples, I had no problem with. The rhetorical argument that came out of that was whether the government should be involved in marriage and whether we should allow gay marriage. Now, the concept of marriage as a biblical tenet, as a religious tenet, is where I draw the line. Is now we're discussing religious and biblical tenets. Now, no, I'm not okay with that. But the issue is, what should the government be involved in, what should not be involved in, and we should draw that line right there. When it comes to Maduro there, what are you thinking about Maduro's denying all charges? I'm like, the balls on this guy are astounding.
Well, I think Maduro is maybe the dumbest person on earth. If he had parked his ego and realized the reality of what he was up against, he and his wife would probably be sitting on a beautiful Caribbean island with an umbrella drink right now in plush surroundings. Instead, he may very well end up in Rikers Island. The only thing that is quizzical to me is, why did they choose New York as the venue to try him? I mean, you're going to go to maybe the second most liberal place in America, and I just don't know how that's going to play out, whether it was intentional. Maybe this is political theater that we're going through, or I'm just not sure. Maybe they will in the end. Maybe he'll get acquitted by a jury, and maybe he will get that palatial residence in exile somewhere. But he's a bad guy, and President Trump, who I am intensely loyal to, I don't think has really shot straight with us. I don't think it really had as much to do with fentanyl and drugs as it did about foreign power. Russia and China weren't cozying up. They were cozied up with Maduro and Venezuela. And that's right on our southern border. I mean, only a body of water separates us. And also, Putin is moving on the Ukraine. She is threatening to move on Taiwan. I think the day after Trump is out of office, he'll probably do so. And it seems like we're in a global realignment of power, and that we're going to protect our hindquarters in the Western Hemisphere. Russia will do that in their neck of the woods, and China in theirs. Ultimately leading to just three conglomerates of world power, being Russia, China, and the United States. I don't know exactly where India will fall out in that mix, if that is the inevitability that I predict. But we're going to claim Greenland. I'm sure that the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is making them a deal that's too good to say no to, and we may end up with Greenland in the very near future. So it seems very intentional to me, not so much about drugs, maybe about oil. They certainly were abusing the sanctions by taking Venezuelan oil and delivering it to Iran through a proxy, that being Cuba. And Cuba derived a lot of benefit from Venezuela oil, both as a broker and a consumer. So I think it's a Rubik's Cube that is very complicated, and more so than most people realize. But whatever the outcome, Maduro is not going to be part of it.
I think, and there was an excellent clip that came out of the TV show Jack Ryan. James Kaczynski had gone on explaining how the world's despotic dictators actually gain the most from having failed states like Venezuela. You don't want to actually go in and take over and fix those states. The corruption thrives there when you have a broken state like Venezuela, Ukraine, and such. And it creates a lot of openings to be abused by our adversaries. Now, at the same time, I'm America first. I'm a big supporter of Trump, but I don't believe in going around the world and getting involved in other people's shit. I think we should mind our business and take care of our stuff at home. We got a lot of problems here that we need to be focusing on. And it seems like we're always prioritizing stuff going on elsewhere in the world on both sides of the aisle, as opposed to dealing with the stuff right here that American citizens, that really hits our kitchen table. Now, at the same time, I also don't agree with allowing China to get their hooks into Venezuela right south of our border, where they're within missile range of the when they're within missile range of the United States. I don't agree with that. And to the degree that we have to get involved to protect U.S. interests that come to an issue of national security, I think we should do so, because that does, allowing Venezuela and China to cozy up together does pose serious national security threats to the United States in the long term. No, not in the short term. They weren't firing missiles at us. They weren't doing incursions into the United States. And I'm skeptical too of the fentanyl production distribution going into the United States through Venezuela as well. I think friggin' China has plenty of distribution coming in through Mexico and other South American states. I don't think Venezuela is very high on that list. However, as a long-term national security threat, I think having China have the partnering up with the world's largest resource-rich country is a huge problem for us, especially right at our back door.
Well, you and I see things very similarly. I guess we do have a point of disagreement in terms of the Trump's decision to be aggressive in other parts of the world. I mean, I think that we will end up governing in some way or partnering with a friendly leader in Venezuela. They will be our close ally. And then I suspect that we will end up with Cuba or a friendly leader there, dictator, new president, I don't know, and possibly Greenland. And so I feel like those moves are probably, even though in principle I agree with you, but in practicality, I think that we've got to do it in order to protect the United States interest. And clearly Russia and China are going to do it. So I'm not in favor of sitting on the sidelines and watching them expand their territory while we sit here taking a knife to a gunfight.
I do agree with you on some tenets. And when it comes to national security, I'm willing to give a few things, but I need it clearly lined out. This is why we're doing it. This is what we're going to do. I need to see that this is not going to be another war of attrition. This is not going to be another 20-year forever war. That when we go in and we do things, we're going to go in, kick ass, take names, and we're going to walk away. I liken it to if you walk up and you slap my wife on the ass and I have to beat the crap out of you, I'm going to leave you laying on the ground in a pool of your own blood as an example to everybody else not to mess with my wife, not to mess with me. I'm not going to help you back up, pat you on the butt and tell you good game and rebuild your country afterwards. So to the degree that we can do it diplomatically with Greenland, that's great. To the degree that we can do it diplomatically with Cuba, that's great. To the degree that we have to go in militarily in Venezuela, if we can get, good leaders that we can partner with, that's great. I just don't want to be, an imperialist running other countries.
I got you, but look, let's be real. The Venezuela people are dancing in the streets that Trump got Maduro out of their country.
Oh, 100%.
And around the world.
Yeah, 100%. He was a bad guy. He had to go. And the Venezuelan people are going to be forever grateful to the United States for it.
Bingo.
Just real quick, because we have one more thing left on the call sheet before the end of the show. Trump calls for the release of any Epstein files naming Democrats. Says, quote, embarrass them, unquote. Yeah, I like the idea of going ahead and exposing all the Democrats, especially all the donors who have gone down to Epstein's Island engaged in debauchery. However, I want everybody on both sides of the aisle who was involved in anything with Jeffrey Epstein to be exposed. I don't care whether they got an R next to the name or a D next to the name. Take them all out. Pedophiles need to go.
Well, I on that I can agree with you. However, it is a really dangerous thing once you start releasing names because you're going to run the risk, and you probably will name people that had nothing to do with Epstein's toward activities. They may have just known him socially, flown on his airplane, or have done business dealings with him. And we've always had sort of a tenet in this country that we will let guilty people go to protect the innocent.
Yeah.
And so I'm not real bullish on releasing the list, whatever that list is. I'll tell you the list that I want very loudly and clearly. I want the list of intel that was sponsoring Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, there's no question that he was working for the CIA and maybe Mossad. I want full disclosure on that because I'll tell you, in my view, the intelligence community of this nation is a cancer.
Agreed.
They have evil people with evil in their hearts working there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that they killed the 35th president of the United States. I don't have the connection, but I'm suspicious about Building 7 and who it didn't come down because of the Twin Towers. So who did bring down Building 7? It had all sorts of government offices in it, including the CIA and the Secret Service and the ATF. It's sketchy as hell. I want to know about Epstein. I want to know who took a crack at Donald Trump and Butler. And I want to know who killed Charlie Kirk. It looks like a special ops operation to me. I don't, that's a broad brush. I can't say it's the CIA or the FBI or maybe Turning Point, maybe Mossad. I don't know. But I just would like to see our government be truly transparent. And doggone you, Kash Patel, because you promised and you haven't delivered. And I have a real problem with that.
I 100% agree. I'm going to say on the Charlie Kirk issue, the one thing I'm going to say is, in a lot of cases, you do not have the intelligence agencies do not have to plan. The CIA doesn't have to plan this. They just have to allow it to happen. They just have to know about it and let it happen.
I don't know the degree of involvement. It may be zero. Yeah. I mean, Erica Kirk has got all sorts of stuff swirling around her, and Turning Point has got financial irregularities. We know that because Charlie Kirk wrote a memo 8 days before he died ordering an audit of Turning Point's books and replacing the COO of Turning Point. So there's a lot of smoke. We need answers.
I 100% agree. This is John Gordon, attorney, legal analyst, and host of Palm Beach-based, nationally syndicated radio show and podcast, The Truth with John Gordon. The world is weird. The world is getting really weird. We live in odd times, and it would be nice for things to go back to a sense of normalcy, but they're not. The reason why they're not is because we have greater access to information than we have ever had, and there are just too many things that have been hidden for too long that they can't hide anymore. And we're finding them, and we're going to keep exposing them. And right here on the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast, I am going to continue to shatter your preconceived notions as handed down to you by your favorite podcasters, grifters, and influencers in the mainstream media. God bless everyone. Make sure you join the Ram TV Live family. And if you haven't already, go ahead and buy a copy of my book, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. It's available on Amazon and everywhere that you buy your books. And I have a new book coming out very, very soon, going to be Blockbuster Homicide, How Woke-Washing Killed Hollywood. And if you're up for some good Christmas music, I have 2 singles already out, available, Christmas Things and a blues version of Mary Did You Know, and I have a whole Christmas album coming out, and it'll be out in about 2 weeks. God bless everyone. Have a good night.
United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.